Hey, insight number 5, last one for the week. We're going to go into Genesis chapter 11. And I just realised I did the other ones without the light on. So I'm doing this one with the light on. So if I look a little different, it's because I turned the light on. Forgot my light. Anyway. See? Shows up my baggy eyes more. Anyway. I digress once again. So in chapter 11, all men are speaking the same language. Now this is the language that came from Adam, came through Noah. Obviously it's changed over time. They would have had new things to name, new emotions to name, whatever. It would have changed a little, not a whole lot. Some smart person gets the idea to build a tower to get to heaven. Perhaps they heard the story of the city of Enoch and they want to get up there too. Perhaps they're angry with God and they want to go shake their fist at him. I don't know, but some smart people, thinking they're smart, get the idea to build this tower to heaven. So they start building. So we're going to look at the difference between Enoch's city and Babel, because what's the difference? So we're looking at verses 4 through 9. But yeah, it does say off that the whole earth was language. That's in verse 1, that it was one language and of one speech. So everyone spoke the same language. And then 3, they got some brick and slime and mortar and started building this tower. So in 4 it says, "Go, let us build a city and a tower whose top may reach into heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the earth." I don't know what they were scared of. I'm pretty sure Satan's been whispering in their ears and giving them these ideas, because really, not smart. The Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men build, and the Lord said, "Behold, the people is one, and they all have one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, and they may not understand one another's speech." So he looks at it, and he's like, what the heck? This ain't going to happen. This is not cool, and I'm going to punish you by confounding your speech. Thus making many different languages. So you can imagine being there. There would have been thousands of people working on this huge thing. Like my husband pointed out last night, how tall did it get? And we don't know. But to even have something that's going to be, I don't know, you're thinking like 100 feet tall. The base of it had to be huge. The foundation of it to support something. It wouldn't have been an up and down structure. It would have been more pyramid-like. And it would have kept growing at the base as they got taller to keep the structure sound. So the thing would have been huge. Absolutely huge. And then in verse 8, "So the Lord scattered them abroad from hence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city." So they left the tower, went off to build the city of Babylon. And 9, "Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord there did confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth." So you can imagine being in families, and it seems that it was happening gradually. The way that Ether describes it, that the Jaredites wrote about it, that Jared, or the brother of Jared, that they told about it, the way it was written, was that it happened gradually. It seemed to, because they knew that it was coming and they were praying, "Please don't confound our language." Now, one of the reasons we can learn about in Ether was that their language was not confounded and that their language was of a higher quality. And it doesn't mean that they were posh speaking. What that means was they were speaking kind to each other. They had kindness in their hearts and they were speaking generously and sweet and loving. So they had the Spirit with them in their language. Therefore, the Lord said, "I will not confound your language." They kept their pure language, all their families all spoke the same one, but then the Lord said, "You need to leave because this place is going to get real bad." So they did. And so grateful that we have that story to learn more about the Jaredites and their trip to the Americas and their barges and all the different things they learned there. Became a great nation that did fall as well. However, that's all of that. But the difference that we're going to talk about here, because I'm just babbling on now, I'm babbling. The difference between Enoch City and Babel or Babel, because Babel does come from ancient words meaning to confuse and confound. and to like blah, 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 because people were working next to each other and then suddenly didn't understand each other. So you would have been in the same family and talking to like your wife or your sister or whoever, your brother, son, daughter, child, I don't know, whatever. Suddenly you can't understand each other, speaking different languages. That would have been very confusing, and they went off into their separate groups. They would have had to find people like, oh, you speak the same language. It's like, when you're at a huge state conference and you see someone that you haven't seen for, like 20 years, and you get all excited and have this big reunion. You would have been all excited. You speak the same language as me. Pretty cool. We were this is what I think of too when I think of it. Like when I was in Hong Kong and we were walking down this road, we saw two elders coming towards us, and I was like, hi elders. One of them was a Hong Kong native. He was Chinese. The other one, I don't know, he looked European. He could have been from Switzerland, Ireland, America, whatever. It turns out he was American, and he'd only been there a couple of weeks. And he was like, oh, you speak English. And he like ran over and he shook our hands and he's like talking to us and he's like, where are you from? And I was like, he was just super excited. And I think to him, that was an olive branch. That was, he's trying to learn the language, and here's God. Remember, we talked about that in the last one. We talked about how miracles happen and a symbol of hope. And this was a symbol of hope, was some church member randomly Hong Kong street that spoke English and could have a conversation with him, because he was desperately trying to learn the language and his companion did not speak English. So he was desperately trying to learn Cantonese, and just so glad to just not have to think about it. And that was that symbol of hope that yes, it will come for him, but it took some time. So I think that was that for him. But I think about that, like how confounding it might be. So anyway, these people were arrogant and they wanted to build their way to heaven. Enoch's people lived in a Christ-like way and got invited to be with God. That's the main difference. These people were trying to force their way in. That's the difference between Enoch and Babel, or Babylon, which it became. They wanted to force their way in. They're like, we're angry. We think we deserve to be there too. We want to get there. We're going to build this thing. We're going to get there. I mean, how do they... They got so far they would have run out of oxygen, fainted and fallen off the tower. I mean, even if they got 10,000 feet in the air, which they wouldn't have. I don't know. Anyway, but the people of Enoch just lived in such a way that they actually got invited to be with God. I think that's pretty cool. So it's anger and arrogance versus humility and honoring covenants. So remember that when you're feeling anger and just to try and let that pass and work through that so that you can have humility and honor your covenants, because that's where you want to be. That's the sweet spot that you want to be in, because you definitely want to be the city of Zion, not the city of Babel. Jared and his family left after praying for their language, not be confounded. They were blessed because they were humble and they honored God. They kept their covenants. There's so much to learn from the attitudes and ways of these two people. So much to learn from the two different attitudes of these peoples. Just really deep dive into that. Think about that, and think about the way that the people of Babel were and what God caused to happen there to teach them to not be that way. And did they listen? No. But the people who were already living in their covenants did listen and got to leave, and remarkable. Anyway, we'll finish with this last Elder Holland quote because it is beautiful. He said, broken minds can be healed just the way broken bones and broken hearts are healed. While God is at work making those repairs, the rest of us can help by being merciful, non-judgmental, and kind. Now, I put that quote in there because that's how the Jaredites and the people of Jared were. Not the people of Babel. The people of Jared were like that. Jared and his family, brother of Jared, their wives, parents, whatever. That's how they were. They were kind to each other. So everything can be healed, and while God is work making those repairs, the rest of us, that's us, you guys, can help by being merciful, non-judgmental, and kind. That's why our language does not get confounded, and that's why we can understand the Spirit better. So remember, be non-judgmental and kind, merciful. All right. Thank you for joining me this week. We'll get into more exciting stuff next week when we get introduced to Abram and Sarai, who become Abraham and Sarah, or Sarai. there you go. However you want to say her name. And we learn about their story and start looking at Father Abraham. It's pretty cool. It's going to be a good week, a good couple of weeks actually. So hang around for that and come back and join us. Stay safe out there. Love you guys. Thanks for joining us.